Here comes brother. Hi, Bubba. Come here. Good morning, y'all. It's nearly noon here, believe it or not. It's kind of overcast. We had a storm yesterday, which I don't mind. I've only watered the garden once this entire summer, except for at the very beginning when my seedlings and seeds were getting established. Otherwise, I've only watered once. God took care of all the other waterings. I'm giving snuggles to Tiny Tim, and down here we have Fluffy. Fluffy does not like to go up on your lap, but she loves being loved. So Tiny Tim and Fluffy, we've been told, are at least 15 years old. They're likely 20 years old. The previous owner of the property, these were her cats, and part of the agreement when we purchased the property was that we would allow them to stay here. So this is their forever home, and they've taken us in as their people, and they like snuggles. And it's always nice to have them in the garden when they're not getting in the way. It's really cute to have them join me in the garden. Barney actually came with this property too, but the sellers weren't aware of him. When we moved here, we would see Barney maybe once a month, and he would come around for cat food that was given to these guys. And sometimes he didn't come around, and then about a year and a half into being here, he showed up and wouldn't leave after he'd been seriously injured in like a cat fight of some sort, and he had a number of infections. So we got 3 cats with the property, and then little Peach, we've had her for just about a year now, and we actually found her in a parking lot. We were on our way to grab lunch, and I nearly ran over her. She was about 3 weeks old, fit in my palm, missing an ear. I thought her skull was actually cracked, but it was just her ear was ripped off. So the vet thought she had been inside an engine and it got ripped off when the car was started. So we saved little Peach. I had told her, if you survive, you can be our cat. So we have Princess Peach, and due to only having one ear, we decided to make her an indoor cat. I don't think it's fair for her to be outdoors. She'd be more likely to be hunted by the coyote here. We also have bears here. We have fox that could get her too. And we have hawks and owls. So I didn't want her to have a short life just because she had one ear and she was an outdoor cat. So we said, you'll be our little princess inside. Speaking of animals that are in our area, we have bears. I believe they're black bears. Yeah, we have black bears here, which this year there has been at least one active black bear. We have not sighted it on our property, but it's been at our next door neighbors and another neighbor across the street. So bears are prevalent here. We have fox, which we've seen across the street, and I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure Daniel saw fox here on our property towards the end of winter. They were like stalking the cattle, which like the fox can't really do much to a cattle to a cow that I'm aware of. We also have coyotes, which will hunt our cattle. They will chase them, and the cattle will step in like a gopher hole and break its ankle, and then the coyotes will eat it, or they'll get a little calf and eat it. We have raccoons, opossums, groundhogs, voles and moles, and snakes. Most of the snakes in Virginia are not poisonous, but we do have poisonous snakes. And none of the snakes are particularly aggressive. And as you guys may have seen, I found out recently that it's actually illegal to kill any snakes in the state of Virginia unless they are causing harm to yourself or your property. That would include like livestock and such. And that goes for any protected species in Virginia. We have skunks. I believe the spotted skunk is protected, so you are not allowed to harm them in any way. But the skunks that we have on our property, I don't believe are the protected ones. And we have like a whole family that live here. They're pretty harmless. They can like get in a fight with a cat, but they're not. Mainly their issue that they do is they burrow and cause damage to like the foundation. We have hawks. I believe we have red-tailed hawks and some other ones. We have a falcon. I think there's like one type of falcon in the area, which I'm rather certain I have seen this falcon more than once. We have one that lives further back on the property where we have more trees. We have owls. I've not seen any owls here. We have bats. You see bats pretty easily in the evening near any kind of light source when the sun's going down. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm aware of that we have. Also out here we have bobcats. I think I've heard a bobcat. I've not seen any bobcats here. Our property is kind of unique in the sense that it's relatively safe for these cats. So they lived on their own outside for 2 years after the previous owner passed away. These were taken care of by a neighbor, but they just lived outside and they survived. They just go and hide and they do fine. So it's not very common that we have predators coming in near our house. We do get deer, but it's pretty seldom because across the street we have cornfields, and then surrounding the house is electric fence for the cattle, and so it's just an obstacle that the deer would rather go around. Same with like a bear. My neighbors thought that the bear would have gotten into our massive bird feeder in the chicken coop, but it has, if it wants to come in from this side of the property, we have electric fencing. And then if it wants to come in from this side of the property, there's a road and there's cornfields. So you'd have to go through the cornfields at this point, which it could do. I think that's how the deer come to our property that I have seen. Deer can hop over the electric fence. It's not that big of a deal, but they are exposed over on the right and left and back this way because they're cleared fields. There's not really anywhere for them to hide, so they're in the open. And so also neighbors are amazed I don't have any fence at all around my garden, and nothing ate my garden this year. Last year I had problems when I planted from seed and green beans were popping up. They were germinating. Something kept eating them down. Same with the sweet peas. But if I covered them, then it was fine. And once they got to a certain height, they stopped getting eaten. I think those were the groundhogs. We have bunny rabbits, but because of the cats, they will like eat the rabbits. And so I think because we have these barriers, the road, the electric fencing, and the garden is right next to the house, so there's a lot of foot traffic, and we have like night lights and stuff out here. I do not get deer in my garden so far, and I've had very little damage done to the garden this year. A groundhog was eating, I think, some fennel in my garden. Not fennel, it was eating some dill in my garden. I think a rabbit or a groundhog was eating some of my just flowers for pollination in the garden, but it left the plants I actually cared about and I wanted them to produce alone. I also saw mocking jays swoop down and attack groundhogs when they went into my garden. So that worked out. And so, yeah. And the birds, the only thing birds have really gone after in my garden this year was my strawberries. I had ants and I believe mocking jays eating away at my strawberries. Nothing went after my tomatoes other than hornworms, and we had very few of those. And then we had cabbage worms eating the cabbage, and those are pretty easy to maintain by just plucking them off and like spraying them. The hardest part in our garden has been weeds, because as soon as it dries up, you can't pull the stuff out of the ground. Also, like once they get to a certain size, it's just such a nightmare. So Daniel's been my saving grace on that. Yeah. So all in all, I'd say like this season of gardening has been very easy. And that just goes by the weather that I've had and the environment we have around the garden here. Egg sales have been great this year. We are selling enough eggs where the chickens are not actually costing us anything other than labor and time input, which, yes, that costs money, but dollars and cents wise, it doesn't cost us anything. We sell our eggs for $5 a dozen. They're going, the cheapest I've seen in store like last week was $1.50 a dozen for just like white eggs at Walmart. And not everyone wants to pay $5 a dozen, but there's a reason. These are the best quality eggs you can get because our chickens are roaming around, they're eating bugs, they're eating grass, they have natural sunlight. We don't put a light on inside their coop to make them produce multiple eggs a day. They're just living a bird's life. The only thing I would like to change is maybe letting them out of their enclosed run every now and then, because I can corral them back in relatively easy, but they're living a chicken life. It's completely how they would live if we weren't really around. Probably even a longer life because we're supplementing their feed and making sure that they're safe and protected. So $5, we don't give them any GMO feed. We don't fatten them up with corn. There is some corn in their feed, and the feed is sourced locally too, so it's not from like a name brand big chain. It's supporting the local economy, so we're really happy about that. It's been interesting seeing the fluctuation with the birds producing in different weather conditions. And then too, the birds have gone through broodiness where they want to sit on a clutch of eggs and hatch them. And we have had 3 moms have some chicks, so we have 7 baby chicks. And that's been great. Way easier than buying like our own chicks because the mothers are doing all the work. The hard part about it is having them separated out from the rest of the flock. So then you need like a whole nother water and feeder and whatever you're doing for like your main flock, you have to do for the baby flock, as far as if there's weather protecting them and things. So we'll see how they transition, and hopefully we have more girls than boys in the 7 chicks. Keep you all posted on that. One of the things that really helps with our egg sales is we have regular customers. They're not just random people showing up buying eggs. We have a sign right off the road, so we could get a new customer just by someone driving by, but most of our sales have been initially from the sign going up, and then word of mouth from other people in the community. We do have an Amish family that buys from us every single week, and they buy 5 dozen eggs at a time unless they have company, and then they might buy some more. So just knowing that you have that regular customer and the amount that they buy, it really helps when you're doing your math, your chicken math, on how many more birds you need. We have a family and friends in a bigger city, other town over, and they buy lots of eggs from us, but they're not regular, and they want a large batch of eggs all at once, and our girls only produce 20 to 30 eggs a day depending on conditions. So that it's wonderful and helpful because we have the money coming in to offset the cost of the birds, but it's not consistent and regular, and we can't always fill the order if we don't have a surplus of eggs, meaning that our sales locally have been slow. So kind of figuring out that balance has been interesting. Oh yeah, this year too, I was very excited about our peach trees. Our peach trees were packed with peaches, and this week I was looking at our peach trees. I could only find one peach that potentially will be ripe and we can eat. All the others have had some kind of an infection or disease and like rotted. There were, I want to say it was like a rodent. I'd never seen squirrels on our property near the house, but it looked like a rodent, like a squirrel had chewed them down and ate like part of it, and it was like, these aren't ripe, and just left it. So we had that issue. Then we had Japanese beetles burrowing into the peaches, and then they rotted, or some other bugs. So that's really disappointing. I was speaking with a neighbor, and they said you have to spray your peach trees out here. I don't treat any of our fruits and vegetables with any chemicals. I have used neem oil on some of our plants. I have used diluted peppermint oil, and what else? Tea tree oil. I will use cayenne pepper mixture, but that's it. I'm not trying to put synthetics on our plants. I really love the idea of being able to just grab the plant and eating it, and I'm fine. I mean, unless you maybe see a bird pooped on it, you might want to wash that. But just being able to pluck it off the plant and eat it. And I don't want some bug or some bird or animal to eat something that like we wouldn't eat either. Because too, I give pieces of our plants to the birds. Come here, bud. Come here. So I don't want to be like poisoning our birds or giving them stuff that isn't something good for them long term, or something that later on, if we eat our chickens, which we plan to eat our chickens, we would be consuming secondhand. So I guess I'll speak on that about eating our chickens. Our chickens will be producing eggs for 2 to 3 years at their peak output. Once they start to taper off and not produce as much, we're going to be culling, which is we're going to end their life, and we will not use them for eggs anymore, but we will use them for meat. That is not ideal chicken meat. Ideal chicken meat is young, and it would be tender because it's young. So this will be tough. So this would be more for like soups and stews and things that are cooked slowly, and it doesn't really matter if it's tough meat. But that way we're using all of the bird, and there's something Joel Salatin says is where he's a large chicken producer. He does egg and meat birds, and he calls it their one bad day. We give our chickens, no, there goes Phil, my UPS guy. We give our chickens the ideal chicken life, in my opinion. And so they've had a wonderful life, and some of our birds will have mothered babies, and we have one rooster in there, so they have their whole natural life, but we're just ending it sooner. And they didn't have any bad days. I mean, our first flock, okay, they did, because they had that scary thing happen where their chicken coop went flying and they had to be in a car, and so they had a little stress, but other than that, they've had a wonderful life, and we've cared for them like they're our pets, which will probably make it hard when we go to put them in a pot. But it's the circle of life, and if they just died of old age, we wouldn't be able to use them, unless maybe we fed them to another animal that would eat a deceased animal. Also, if you wait to maybe cull the birds later, they wind up costing you more money, because they're going to just be consuming chicken feed and not giving you eggs, which give you income. So right now our birds are paying rent. It's when they stop paying rent, or they're not paying the market rate of rent, that's when you cull them and they make their final payment. Some people agree with that, some people don't, and that's okay. We don't all have to agree. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do some just farm shots of everything lovely out here.